Okay, welcome everybody. Today is Monday, October 9th, 2020. It is 3:01 p.m. and it's the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners meeting. All three commissioners are present remotely, so we do have a quorum. First up today is recognition and proclamation, Resolution 2019-10 Domestic Violence Awareness Month, presented by Amber, Executive Director of My Sister's Place, aka My State's Place. I do believe we have a proclamation to read. Christy, if you could scroll.
I'm Christy today.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Casey. Is there a commissioner that would like to read the proclamation?
Madam Chair, I'd be honored to do that.
Okay.
Whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy and dignity, security and humanity due to systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control and/or abuse, and whereas domestic and sexual violence crosses all social groups, but people who are women, transgender, LGBTQ, poor or working class, native, of color, immigrant, non-English speaking, disabled, young, elderly, or otherwise marginalized not only shoulder the burdens of oppression, but also experience high rates of domestic violence. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting the health and wellness of individuals and society as a whole here in this community, throughout the United States and the world. And whereas preventing interpersonal violence is not only possible, but it is our collective responsibility, and prevention requires significant changes to our social norms regarding gender roles, strength, sexuality, relationships, and the normalization of violence. And whereas a coalition of organizations has emerged to directly confront this crisis, advocates and those involved with shelters and hotline services, law enforcement officials, healthcare providers, the clergy, and other concerned individuals are helping in the efforts to end domestic violence. Now, therefore, in recognition of the important work done by My Sister's Place, the Let's Care program, Lincoln County District Attorney, and the Lincoln County Domestic Violence Council, the members of the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim the month of October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lincoln County, and we urge all citizens to work with these invaluable community agencies to help alleviate this problem in our community.
Thank you for reading that, Commissioner Hall. I will go ahead and make the motion that we proclaim October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Lincoln County.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And I do believe we have the director for My Sister's Place, also known as My State's Place. So is there anything you would like to add, Director?
Yes, first I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you all so much for taking time to call attention to this important matter in our community. We really appreciate the support that all of you have given to MSP and CARE and the other moving parts that work towards the goal of ridding our community of oppression and finding a healthier way for everyone to live. So first of all, thank you so much for participating and for showing up for our county in all the different ways that you do. The other element I wanted to just let you guys know about some of the things that are going on right now with COVID. We are seeing a spike in services, so much to the point that, normally we would do quite a bit more for DVAM, and because of COVID, but also because we are inundated between the fires and the pandemic, we are seeing a huge spike in services. So we have our head in the game, and that means that sometimes you don't get to do the awareness events the way that you would like, but you're busy doing the work. And if I had to choose, that's the way I'd like to be doing it. There was actually a chance today that I might have had to unfortunately miss this meeting because I was going to need to respond to a sexual assault that got worked out in another way. But, you know, that's just kind of a good picture of where we're at these days, is that the work has to come first, and we get to manage our priorities a lot differently because of it, which I appreciated the opportunity to clarify for, you know, all the work that we do. We do have some exciting things happening for DVAM, and just that's on the horizon for MSP in general. They're just to acknowledge the My Sister's Place or My Safe Place. You know, there was a transition we unveiled last year that we would be moving from My Sister's Place to My Safe Place to be more inclusive and reflect the work we're actually doing and serving all genders. But, you know, with the pandemic and some other, you know, transitions within our own agency, it's really an example of the same thing. We are too busy doing the work to sometimes refine our processes. So for right now, we are still legally My Sister's Place, but we go by MSP because it answers to both. So a lot of our branding right now you'll see as that. So we answer to both names right now. So as far as some things we have rolling out, we have lots of Domestic Violence Action Month information on our Facebook right now. We just launched a brand new website. It's in its infancy as far as it's live. We're happy about that. And that website is msplincolncounty.org. And the goal and intention as we build this website is an answer to the need for immediate resources. Someone can always call our hotline and 24/7 and be able to reach someone and talk out issues, but we also want to provide, maybe that's not a place where people are at. And so the website, the intention moving forward is going to have it be a comprehensive place for people to find any resources that you would normally walk through with an advocate, like, okay, what are the things you need? You'll be able to find all of those there. So we'll have a whole section for court advocacy and how to prepare for a contested restraining order, how to do X, Y, and Z. We'll have a whole section about housing and the rights that are unique to people experiencing domestic violence. So we're pretty excited about the launch and also our intentions about where that's going to go. We'll also be having a blog on there as well that will carry over to our Facebook. So we're excited about all that. We also have, as a fundraiser that you'll be able to find also on our Facebook, we've got 3 options right here. These are masks, and they say break the silence, end domestic violence. So those will be available through Facebook and then eventually our website, and they are $12. And in respect to contact, we will be sending those in the mail, and shipping is included. So if you are interested, you can follow our Facebook here within the next week. I'll have the details, or always call our office. And then the last thing I just wanted to let you guys know about is a memorial that we'll be having in honor of those who have lost their lives due to domestic violence. There will be a bench that's going to be dedicated at Jump Off Joe's on the 27th. And there will be, who knows what the weather is going to be like, right? So we'll have tents spread out, and we'll have it marked off with distance so that we stay in line with COVID restrictions. But more importantly, we'll have it streamed on Facebook Live, so anyone will be able to catch that. We have speakers from some families who have been impacted by that from MSP, and also the district attorney will be speaking. So we've got a lot of really great things happening. Definitely stay tuned to our Facebook page, and just know that if anyone ever needs support or questions on how to support someone, that we're here, and we are here to answer questions just as much as we are here to support survivors. So
thank you so much for that, and thank you for kind of clarifying the name, because names are important, and I know you guys made the announcement you were changing your name, but then some of your website stuff still has your other name, so thanks for kind of clarifying what we should be calling you by. I appreciate that. So any other comments from commissioners?
I'll just say, I'm glad that we have this yearly opportunity to put the spotlight on this important issue. And as the resolutions capture so eloquently, that this is a true community partnership, not only several elements of county government, but MSP, the Let's Care program, other partners. The resolution very eloquently alludes to the change in community norms, values, and expectations surrounding domestic violence that need to change. And I think if we look back 10, 20, 30 years, there has been significant change. At least the issue has been brought out in the open in a way that it wasn't decades ago, but we still have quite a long way to go. And I'm just very glad that the county can be one of the partners in this effort.
Thank you, Mayor. And we really do look at that in the same sentiment with, it is a partnership. And I've really loved seeing how things have, I walked into this community a little over a year ago and was drawn to it because of the sense of community that already existed. I came from Tillamook most recently, and I was really attached to the sense of community that we had there. And I love what's happening here. And I love even more through the fires and through COVID and other things even before then. We as an agency were a bit fragile for a while there, but I felt like because of our community and our partners, we were wrapped in bubble wrap, and anything that happened, we had that extra layer of protection and support. And I feel like we have made it through and are thriving and are able to help survivors in such a unique and deeper way than we've ever had before. And let me tell you, we have so many plans for the future to expand and deepen those roots and support people in such unique ways that I can't wait to report on what those things will look like a year from now, because hold on to your hats. There's some cool stuff coming down the line.
Well, we'll be excited about hearing about those things as they come, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, Casey, if we can go back up to the agenda.
Consent if I might.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Hunt.
Yes, well, I'd certainly echo Commissioner Hall's comments that we've come a long ways in recognizing the issue of domestic violence. And sadly, we have a long ways to go, but I think the partnerships that have been talked about are clear evidence of the progress that has been made and the efforts to address domestic violence. And I guess I would ask Amber, clarify a little bit about what the Domestic Violence Council does, what their role is. And I'm not sure, do we still have a domestic violence court? I know at one time, I believe we funded that. I'm not sure what the current status is.
Well, as for court, I can tell you, I hear in another room, the court advocate that we have, her name is Vanjie. She is very good at her job. She is on the phone and participating in DV court actually as we speak. It started at 3 o'clock. So that is still alive and well, and we're seeing a lot of good connections made because of different people attending, because it's not just us and the people who are obligated to attend, but I know that Dawn from Crossroads attends that and gives reports and feedback, but also takes statistics in part of the grant that we work on together. So just by the people attending at DV court alone, it really shows the cross sections of our work. So with Don, he's with works through the Batterers Intervention Program, which is an important piece, and our services are so complementary because we can grow and learn together and support our community just with that one partnership. But also Victims Assistance attends that as well, and so there's just that one place shows where we come together and can offer referrals and do support. Sometimes there's things that victims assistance can't do that we can, or vice versa, and we really work together to move the effort forward. As far as DV Council, it has taken a little bit of a pause because of COVID. And I think we're all in our own circles, doing what we can, like I was saying before, to put our heads down and take care of the people that are right in front of us. But I do imagine that the work will be picked up very, very soon as far as that's concerned. But the purpose of the DV Council is to, I view it, and granted, I'm a newer member of that committee, so I don't feel like I can speak fully for it on my own, but my interpretation of it has been that it's an extra set of eyes on the trends and the view of what's happening, and sometimes as a council has a chance to do things that maybe the direct one agency can't do, but they can pick up a specific need or a specific cause and call awareness to it, get some momentum behind it, and move forward. And it's really like all of us working in our different circles of influence, and whenever we can, pulling those circle of influences together, and we can go even farther because of that. There's just so many partnerships that with Crossroads, with right now MSP and Child Advocacy Center are doing quite a bit more. We, through one of our grants that also is with Crossroads, we are training one of their advocates to help respond. There's a low, there's not very many people who can respond and are trained for sexual assault advocacy. And right now the tribe has one person and I'm the other person. And so getting Lizzie from Child Advocacy Center trained up in that is so great because it benefits their agency. It provides deeper support for survivors, and it alleviates a little bit of the burden on the agencies for already doing the work. And so it's just things like that we are looking at the gaps in our services and looking at who around us is doing similar work and finding a way to partner in just so many different directions that it's happening so fast that we can't even stop to tell people about it. But that is our hope with the website and the blog, to start to call attention to the good work that is happening and highlight our partnerships. I know there's also the Human Trafficking Task Force, and we're going to be using our blog to support some intentions that they have that we're coming up with in January. It's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So it's those types of things that we do hope to be calling more attention, so we can let people know the good work that's already happening in our community and invite them to participate.
Well, that's why I asked the question. I know the council has many roles and can provide a lot of support. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great question. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you again for being with us today. And I know that, you typically provide an update, every year or so, but it doesn't have to be a year. So feel free to come back. It sounds like you have some exciting things going on. It might be good to hear from you again in 6 months or something to see how things are going. So feel free to stay in touch. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on to the adoption of the consent calendar. These are various items of a routine nature, and either commissioners or staff can pull one for further information or discussion if needed. Otherwise, I will go ahead and entertain a motion.
I'll move for adoption of the consent calendar as presented today.
I'd like clarification on item H2, but I'll be happy to second Commissioner Hall's motion with clarification of item H2. I assume that's an order, and what are we ordering?
So I actually believe, and Wayne can probably answer this, I don't think Rachel has joined us yet, but I think we're actually going to be talking about this later on in our agenda.
I think we are. If Rachel's not here, I can talk about it a little bit later too.
Rachel, are you here? Oh, I see her.
Well, are we, I guess I don't understand what we're doing. I mean, we're.
So the program that's going to be explained is a combination of state funding through community development block grant funding. And the county then provides a portion of the funding for that particular program too, as did the cities of Newport and Yahats. And so this is a continuation of that particular program and expansion. We had multiple pots that the state made available to us. So it's just a continuation and expansion of the existing program. Because I think what that one is.
Okay, well, I second it.
Okay, I was gonna say as needed, Commissioner, how we could approve, without H2 and then, pass that separately after, discussion.
If legal counsel is comfortable with the verbiage and what it means, I'll approve it.
Okay. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, first up under reports, Echo Mountain Complex Fire Update, and I think it's Lieutenant Shanks that is providing that update for us.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Adam Shanks, Administrative Lieutenant with the Sheriff's Office. You asked for an update on the fire progress and recovery plans that we have in place moving forward. And I thought I'd just go over the recovery plan that we have actually built, which kind of identifies out into branches of areas of responsibility and concerns as we provide response for our citizens and the affected people in our community. First, just kind of going over a brief overview of each of these sections, and I can entertain any questions that you guys may have. Looking at damage assessment, that is all but done for us at the county level, with the exception of some of the properties that may have sustained partial damage that are not completely destroyed. That piece is still in process on some level and will continue to be sure for the months ahead. But that piece, as far as reporting out to the state and federal government, as far as the number of damaged or destroyed homes, we've completed that. We've reported on that in the past already. I think 293 homes, if my memory serves me correctly. And then there's some others that are damaged but not completely destroyed. And I'll report on these and not necessarily in any kind of ranked order. And we'll discuss at the end kind of what the real true heavy lifts are, the areas that we're really placing a lot of focus on as we move forward into recovery. But the next piece, and this is one of those, the financial cost recovery piece. This is a heavy lift. There's a lot of working parts to this recovery to the fires. And we are currently researching and evaluating the need for contractual services in this area to help assist us respond. As everyone knows, given the hand we've been dealt over the past year, not with just the fires, but also with COVID and all of our resources that have been working diligently in response to the pandemic and the fires. We're just getting, looks like we may need some additional assistance, and that is a policy decision that we'll be presenting before you in the very near future about what kind of services that we can possibly look into from a contractual perspective to focus on that area specifically. And that will include services that we'll need for both individuals, the county, and our government partners and private entities. So more to come on that piece. The planning and rebuilding piece, I see Otto on here. I'll speak briefly, and then if he has anything else he'd like to offer, we can do so. Some of the main topics of conversation I know regarding the planning and coordination piece are surrounding how we navigate through the regulatory requirements at the local and state levels. Also looking at different fees and what we can do to try to assist our citizens in the recovery process. And Mr. Husing, I don't know if you want to add more to that from your end of it, but I know that was our topic of conversation recently. If you have anything more, please feel free.
I'm fine, but I'll take my direction from the chair about, I think we were going to talk about those fees in a different part of the, at least fee changes, but again,
You are correct, Donna. We're going to be talking about fees later on, so I think we can have that conversation
I'll
during
stand
that.
down for the time being. Thank you.
Great. Then moving on to Public Works, the watershed, environment protection, erosion control. That is falling under the Public Works Department and Director Roy Kenyon and his team. That's going to be a heavy lift where the county will be reviewing the need for the post-fire mitigation grants, both for the private and public response to that for access. And again, that's another piece that we'll loop in with the financial recovery piece that hopefully we can get assistance with that as well to navigate through that process. Solid Waste District, I know Paul Seitz is on the call. He's also working on the debris management piece. And Paul, if you have any comments you'd like to add on the progress that you guys have made in that area specifically?
Actually, no, but I'll make two quick things, and that is ROEs, over 100 of them received now, which is good progress. So that's the right of entries for the phase one of the process. No other further updates, and erosion control, we are jumping in both feet. So we're there.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul. In that right of entry piece, I'll talk about that a little bit further down in the presentation when we talk about communications with the public and what our PIOs have been working on as well. That is a very key piece that really is going to assist the county in helping our citizens down the road, getting the right of entry forms submitted for their individual properties so we can access those for things like erosion control and fire mitigation. So important piece. Thank you for bringing that up, Paul, as well. Moving on, transportation. I know that Commissioner Jacobson, you've been communicating with our transit coordinator, Cinda Bruce, to ensure that we put a plan in place for those affected in the fire zone to have access to our public transit system. And I know that there's processes being developed now to try to provide them with that access. So that helps them get to and from their residences or in and around to gain access to services regarding the fire recovery as well. So moving on, public utilities, water systems. We had a report this morning from our cooperators call from Kayleen Chavarria with Environmental Health. Sounds like there's been some great progress on some of the water systems up in the affected area. As we've reported on in the past, we have certainly are dealing with several different water systems companies, public-private, wells, and there's a lot to this piece. It's a heavy lift and continues to be something that is evaluated on a daily basis and continuing to be one of those things that is constantly needing more service and assistance with trying to identify where the water is at and the safety of the water systems in that area. I know that the Panther Creek water system has been able to get clean water to the majority of their standing homes. So that was good news that we received today. I'm not sure about all the other water companies. I know there's some in different phases of trying to rebuild. And that continues to be an ongoing process for them. One of the heavier lifts, talking about housing. I know that we've had a lot of discussions about this with the policy group at the county. Red Cross is currently still overseeing our emergency sheltering. I believe that we have approval to keep those that are displaced in emergency shelters at least through the end of this calendar year, through December 31st, which is a good situation for us, so we can focus our efforts on the transitional housing piece. That has been a heavy lift. There's a lot of moving parts with that as well. Agreements that need to be determined between the state and federal government. And Commissioner Jacobson, I know that you've been working on that with Bethany Grace Howe, who's been working as our resource navigator out at the Alala Center. And I don't know if you'd like to provide any information on or updates regarding that.
Yeah, in terms of Bethany's involvement, we should probably have her present at a BOC meeting at some point in time, but we basically provided a contract with the Alala Center for them to provide navigational services, and Bethany was the person that they hired, brought on to do that. Beyond that piece and into the transition piece, I would say that There's really just beginning to have a lot of conversations at the state level with Red Cross on what that transition is going to look like. The first of that transition call was last week, and there's another one later on this week to start really honing in on the process. I will say that the normal way that Red Cross does that transition, well, first of all, we'll be doing mass care and sheltering and not in hotels because of COVID. We're in hotels already. And so the way they usually do that transition for housing is a lot different than how we will have to do it because of COVID. And so it's been a relatively new model for them and will be a brand new model for us, having not done this before. So there's not a whole lot to report on at this point other than those pieces at a high level. All the wildfire affected counties are beginning to be talked about and discussed, and those plans are starting to take some form.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. The next piece, again, one of the heavy lifts that we have, the work that our public information officers have been doing. Casey Miller, Susan Traxel's helped out quite a bit from public health as well. And one of the things that is critical in an effective response that we've really been talking a lot about and focusing effort on is information dissemination and communication to our fire victims throughout the county. And we have posted a lot of information on our website. We also recognize that, and we've sent it out in a multitude of different other ways as well. We reach out through our alert systems directly to the affected areas, through messaging, again, through media, through our website, through social media, in every way that we can, especially for that important information. And with all these branches broken out as they are, whether it be recovery, mitigation, planning, coordination, erosion control, all these things have moving pieces that takes a considerable amount of coordination between departments and our community. To try to get that information out is daunting sometimes, and to do it in an effective way where they can follow it as the homeowner or the renter or anyone affected by that fire is really the critical piece that we're focused on at the county level. And I know one thing that our PIO, Casey Miller's been working on is identifying vendors for a possible separate website for the fire recovery process to make it more navigable for people to identify, find resources, and communicate more effectively with our citizens. So that piece is in process. They're working on that and hoping to have that in place moving forward to help us through that. Aside from that, animal protection, Laura Ireland at our Lincoln County Animal Shelter has really been overseeing that branch. She's actually giving very positive reports. We did not have an influx of animals that made it down to the shelter as a result of the fire. We were actually able to reconnect the majority of all animals with their owners or the people. And so that was a very positive report that we received from her. They are going to submit for grant funding from the ASPCA moving forward to help with the recovery piece as well for those that were affected, however. So that piece is underway. And then some of the other things, aside from the things that I've discussed, we also are managing donation management, volunteer coordination, and all pieces that are critical to the recovery for us, as sometimes those are often used as match funding for a lot of the grant funding that we get for the recovery pieces. So a lot's going on. The last piece I'll report on is our emergency management department has been working tirelessly day in and day out as liaisons between the community, our county departments, the state, our federal partners, and keeping everyone informed, keeping all the documentation in order, and working very hard to manage both a pandemic and now a fire in our county, as well as day-to-day activities. So with that, I'll kind of leave it there, I think, and entertain questions. I will say one last thing. I think our three heavy lifts, as I talked about at the beginning, are going to be the financial recovery piece, information sharing with our community to ensure that they can recover as seamlessly as possible, And I'll leave it at that, if you guys have any questions.
No questions from me. Questions from other commissioners? Commissioner Hall, questions for Adam?
No questions, just a real thank you, and I'm sure my fellow commissioners would join me in really thanking the sheriff's office for stepping up in many ways throughout this crisis. Just the feedback that has come back to me directly and indirectly. I know Lieutenant Shanks and I have had a couple of one-on-one conversations about some real fear on the part of homeowners and residents in the burn zone about the potential for property looting, and and the sheriff's office pledged and really has fulfilled the pledge to maintain an enhanced presence there for as long as is necessary. And the feedback I'm getting from citizens is it is noticed and it is really appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for those words, Commissioner. The one last thing, I'm sorry, and any other questions you may have, I'm here for as long as you need me. The one thing I do want to bring up, talking about the communication with our citizens, our emergency management department has put together a recovery checklist that's really just kind of a high level checklist for citizens and both property owners and renters that we will be publishing out either today or tomorrow. That's really just a very nice and quick and easy guideline to check going down the list. You have the county contacts that you need. Have you done these things with regard to debris management and cleanup, erosion control? Have you contacted the assessor's office regarding your property with the contact numbers? It's just a very good resource guide and recovery checklist that they can keep and really stay on track of what you really need to do. And I know that one of the other conversations we had with our team earlier today was really trying to, again, streamline the services that the county provides in this recovery process so it makes it as easy and, again, as seamless as possible for our citizens. So I think this will be really helpful. We'll get that out and make sure that we get it directly to the fire zone residents that were affected, and keep trying to communicate as effectively as we can with our citizens.
Thank you. Commissioner Hunt, did you have any questions for Lieutenant Shanks?
Well, I'll also add my thanks to the sheriff's office for taking the lead on this, and I hope people listening or people that watch the recording of this meeting take a moment to stop and think about how complex the issues are that are facing the county. And I think Adam Shanks, Lieutenant Shanks, did a good job of identifying those and in effect prioritizing them. So lots of work to be done, but I think we're off on a good start. And I, again, thank the sheriff's office and Lieutenant Shanks for taking leadership.
Yeah, well said. All right, thank you, Lieutenant Shanks. I think we also in our agenda had debris management task force update, and I think, Paul, you did already say a few things, but is there anything else you'd like to add under that specific category?
The community is basically getting back on their feet. A lot of people are building things. We're working on the EPA effort to come out and collect hazardous waste. And the phase 2 is still up in the air, no news on that one. So erosion control, we've been encouraging at the personal level, but we're also working on it as a phase level as part of the EPA effort, and that'll be coming very soon.
Thank you. And then my understanding is that ROE deadline was extended. So can you just kind of remind everybody what that was extended to?
Thank you. I appreciate it. There's not a hard date yet set. We've been working with the state on that, but it's certainly through the end of this week, and it will probably have a soft deadline through the end of October anyways, is my guess.
And Madam Chair, could we remind people what ROE stands for?
Yes.
Yes,
It's
right to the free.
the right of entry, so it's the permission for the government to come onto their property and remove materials.
So Chair Jacobson, if I might, I'll add that I participated in a conference call last week with Regional Solutions Recovery Task Force, which is part of the governor's task force, recovery task force, and advocated for a clearer understanding or commitment as to what aspects of the debris management the state would be handling. Certainly, we have a pretty clear understanding as far as the hazardous materials, but not what would be phase 2 as far as ash and other debris removal. And so I advocated very strongly for a commitment to fund those needs because speaking for several counties, I was comfortable in saying that the financial burden to the counties to remove the ash and other debris would be daunting at best. So just some information on that aspect of debris management.
Thanks, Commissioner Hunt. All right, we also had under wildfire update recovery efforts, but I think those were pretty well covered under Lieutenant Shank's report, unless there's anything you would like to add, Wayne.
Actually, I see that Rachel is on the call now, and she was going to talk a little bit about the opportunities for small businesses and the expansion of the programs that assist businesses getting back to. So,
Okay, let's go ahead and that was under Lincoln County Public Health COVID-19 update, but let's go ahead and just move that out from underneath, and we'll get that update now. So go ahead, Rachel.
Yes, I'm sorry, my connection was really funky earlier, so I'm on now. But the line item you guys had up there was in regards to the latest community development block grant opportunity for small businesses and micro enterprises. I believe, Wayne, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have already held the public hearing for this, and this line item was really just to get final approval. We have been awarded that amount. We need to get just approval from all the commissioners to sign off on that. And this is going to be more money coming into our community for small businesses to retain and or create jobs. It's up to $2,500 per job or $10,000 for qualifying micro enterprises. And that's in addition to a number of other opportunities that have come out over the past couple of weeks. So there's, if folks can think about it in 3 different streams, there's the emergency funding for small businesses that came out. There was 4 rounds of funding, 2 which went to the county, 2 which directly to our CDFI partner, which is Community Lending Works. And then there is the match that the county and the city of Newport put up in new funding to actually be able to get those rounds 1 through 4. And that's about a $200,000 pot, more or less. And then there is this funding stream, which is $150,000. So the match money has gone live as community grants, and that's open now for businesses to apply to. And I think it closes, I want to say tomorrow. It's been open for about a week, and that came in with no restrictions around PPP or EIDL, which is really the challenge that we're having with some of the earlier rounds of funding, as there's still restrictions on that funding in place. But then the CDBG money, the $150,000 pot, can go to qualifying small businesses. So that money will be around. It's not as urgent to get out as the other CARES related funding and whatnot.
and just for clarification, I jumped the gun a little bit. This is related to COVID and not to the fire recovery.
All right, questions for Rachel. Commissioner Hunt, do you have questions?
No, I think Rachel continues to do an outstanding, stellar job. So thank you, Rachel.
You bet.
You stole the words out of my mouth, Commissioner Hunt. Absolutely agree. I'm really grateful that we have had her here helping us with this recovery effort and tracking some of these dollars, because there was so much potential funding coming out at one time. It would have been really difficult to get that for our businesses and for other, other activities in the county without someone really tracking that. So thanks, Rachel. Commissioner Hall, anything you'd like to add?
No, other than to join the two of you in making unanimous the sentiments. It is wonderful that we have been able to bring Rachel on board, with the avalanche of things that have been happening. As you alluded to, Chair Jacobson, plenty of funding opportunities, but without someone with Rachel's skill set and the time and focus to pursue these, a lot of these things probably wouldn't have happened.
Thank you very much. It's been great to work with your team.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, moving down into B, our Lincoln County Public Health COVID-19 update, and I see both Rebecca and Florence here. I'm not sure who wants to make the presentation, so I'll let you guys take it away, however you want to do that.
Okay, I think the agreement is that I'll start and Rebecca will jump in as needed. So good afternoon, commissioners. Florence Porta, Deputy Director of Public Health for Lincoln County. So I just wanted to start with kind of an overall view of what's been happening over the past few weeks. We're definitely seeing an uptrend in COVID cases in Lincoln County. It's a trend that we're not seeing resolving yet, and that we are paying close attention to. Just as a piece of context, since the beginning of October, we've had 7 outbreaks that we had to open. And those outbreaks have occurred in various settings and contexts. One that is a little bit concerning to us is definitely a few outbreaks that went into multiple household gathering, and we want to make sure that even though we are in phase 2 and that there are way more activities available for us to do, it's very important that we all maintain those precaution and prevention measures that we keep on repeating over and over. Mask wearing, social distancing, really limiting the amount of indoor gatherings as much as possible, and of course proper hand washings. And those are really measures that are not one or the other. It's really important to do them all at once, and that a really large majority of us maintain those measures for us to be able to slow the spread of COVID in the community, and of course in the state and the country. As you may or may not know, the state of Oregon has seen a tremendous uptick of cases too. That definitely state officials are concerned about. And we had a meeting last week where we were really thinking about how do we communicate those same messages over and over, and trying to do it in a novel way. So I know the team here is definitely thinking about this. We're gonna meet with Susan Truaxell and the Joint Information Center to really think about a communication campaign to continue talking about those important measures. Just maybe if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a representation of confirmed cases and presumptive cases by age group. So we keep on seeing this 20 to 29-year-old group being mostly impacted by the disease. One of the conversations we were having earlier was that we will look at some type of trend over time to see if, we have, I think it would be fair to say that the 20 to 29-year-old group is been in the lead from the beginning, but I really want to look at other age group and see if the trend is going up or down for those groups. So hopefully we'll get that done by next meeting and be able to share this with you all. So I think you can move on to the next slide, and this is another way to pretty much show that since the last time we met with the board, you can see in red kind of like the cases we've handled over the last 2 weeks. Definitely the nurses are feeling the hit a little bit since we had a little bit of a lull for a few weeks. You can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So those are the public health indicators that we are following closely. I don't know if you remember, but last time we met, I'm going to point out to the last line in the indicator that we were not meeting, that was due to a data entry error. So as you can see, this has been fixed, and our matrix is now in the green, which is really good. The percent increase, line number 3, the percent increase in new cases in the last 7 days. So yes, so those are, this is data from not last week, but the week before. So just so we're clear. And so yes, we have an increase in cases, but remember that the percentages is really high because our numbers are quite low still. Even though we're seeing an uptrend, this is what explains the high percentage increase. So in terms of the trend in percent of tests, of course, same thing. If we're operating with smaller number, our increase can feel like they're trending up quite a lot. The one thing that I think we might want to consider, and the team is not aware of that yet, but I wonder if maybe, because we're seeing maybe like a downtrend in the amount of case and the amount of tests that have been conducted, and this has been a downtrend for quite a while. So one of the things that I'm wondering is if maybe we could try to work with partners to look at putting together some type of testing campaign, because the more tests we will get done, that would make our denominator larger and likely reduce our percent of positive tests. And this is a very important percentage and indicator for our schools, which we can move to the next slide, please. So this is a new slide. As you may remember, at the last board meeting, Dr. Gray from the Lincoln County School District was there, and she was discussing the reopening. And so I thought it would be a good idea to keep those metrics at the top of our minds and really look at where we stand. So I just want to disclose one thing is that you'll see that the data is a little bit different from the slide above, and the reason is that Oregon Health Authority and the Oregon Department of Education are not using the same data sets, and so I mean they are using the same data set, but they're not pulling the data at the same time. So therefore, the data set and the numbers are different, which makes for the discrepancy in percentages, if that makes sense. I think this is a piece of feedback that I'd like to give them to see if they can fix it, because that confuses everybody pretty much. But so the points that I wanted to show you is kind of the exception metrics that are showed in green towards the end of the table. So this is what we're operating under at this time in Lincoln County. The kindergartner went back to school last week. And so as you see, we're well within the requirements and the metrics, so they will be able to stay in school. So that's good. I wanted also to give you another piece of information on our partnership with the school. So since the board meeting, we held a very nice meeting in partnership with someone from Salem School District to really kind of run through COVID scenarios between the health department and the schools. That went really well. It was extremely well attended on both sides of, and I thought it was a really good platform to continue building and strengthening our working relationships and communication. And that meeting led us to decide to put a 30-minute meeting, a weekly meeting, where school nurses, administration from the school district, and the public health nurses and myself meet so we can address any questions, any issues that are raising, and make sure that we have a good coordination and communication happening at all time. That is pretty much what I can offer at this time. Rebecca, do you have anything you would like to add?
Thanks, Florence. So they are showing one other chart here that shows pretty much the same thing that the table was showing, just in a little bit different form. So we are watching this really carefully because, like Dr. Gray said, you know, once we open the schools, we don't want to have to go. That's kind of where we're really leaning into right now. And we appreciate any help that anybody can give us to make sure that this message gets out there. We must be resilient.
Thanks, Rebecca. I think we could use scroll down to the phase 2 gathering sizes. I just think it'd be nice to show people that as a reminder. I thought it was just easily summarized in a way that was kind of easy to read and you know, remember what was happening there. And I do have a couple of questions. First off, you had mentioned that we need more testing. Wanted to work with partners on that. Is that because there's a lack of available tests, like we're turning people away again? Or is this, you know, there's available testing, but people aren't going aren't seeking testing like they were previously? What's the situation there?
I don't know that I have this information. I'll defer to Rebecca if you do have.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, Commissioner, that it's not due for a lack of tests. I haven't heard that that's a concern. I think the concern is more that people aren't going to get tested. And I think that might be because it's challenging to get tested. You need to, you know, call your primary care provider and get an order and then get to one of the sites. So unless we have an outbreak and have contacts that might be symptomatic, you know, I just don't think people are getting tested right now. And I think that's partly because our numbers are so low, right? So we don't have so many contacts. Although we should be seeing an uptick in testing, I think, when we look at the data from this week, because that will be the contacts from the week before where we did have some upticks in cases. So it is all very contingent, you know, on how many cases we have and who wants to get tested to see if they have it or not. I would like for us to get to a place where people could access testing much more easily, and I don't feel like we're there yet.
So one piece of information that I forgot to bring about earlier, and I apologize for this, is we were notified, I believe, 10 days ago that the Oregon Health Authority has received some rapid antigen tests from the federal government. Those are called Binex now. They're rapid tests that have proven some efficacy within the adult population and within folks who are symptomatic with COVID-like symptoms. The efficacy of those tests is completely unknown for pediatric populations and for folks who are asymptomatic. So this is a big caveat. So they are in the process of distributing those tests. So the focus Oregon Health Authority wants to take is outpatient settings, urgent care settings, federally qualified health centers, and school-based health centers to really make testing more available to communities. So more to come on this, but we should be, I know the hospital is interested in receiving a shipment, and the FQHCs and school-based health center within Health and Human Services are interested as well. And more to come when this is actually happening.
Thank you. And the second question I had is, we said some of our numbers sort of went up because of people, gathering. Is that, to kind of drill in on that a little bit, is that kind of social gatherings, or is that people going to like a wedding or get-togethers? Like what kind of gatherings seem to be problematic? I mean, all are potentially problematic, but what are people doing that seems to be problematic at this point?
So what we've seen so far are just like, extended family gatherings over a weekend. And then we have about 7 or 8 people coming back positive. Some of them are family members coming from, neighboring counties. The other type we've seen is folks going on specific activities together, even though those activities were outdoor activities, like fishing or hunting. People were still in close proximity, not necessarily using proper prevention measures, and then some case popped up, and so one of the consequences of those gatherings is not only does that affect multiple households and household members, but some of those household members are working in the community, and so then possibly bring COVID to their workplace and so on.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And I would say my big concern here in the next couple of weeks is first Halloween, but additionally we have been having unusually dry weather, which has created some other problems for us in the county, but it at least has allowed people to be outside, out more doing activities, and that is of course going to come to an end here at some point. And then I think a period of a lot of those activities will move inside, where there's less potential safety for this. So I'm hoping we're not up for kind of a hard winter when it comes to that. So thank you. Commissioner Hall, questions for Florence or Rebecca?
No questions, just a comment. It is very good to see that we are bucking the upward trend that so much of the state is seeing, but I just want to reinforce the message I think they're already providing and that we have been providing, that we absolutely cannot let up on our vigilance. As I know as a public health and a county organization, we are not, but the public at large, can't sit back and say, we're in phase 2 now. It's been weeks since we've seen a significant spike in cases. that could change very, very quickly. And so I just want to appeal to the sound, to anyone hearing this, to please keep doing the smart things that are helping to mitigate the spread of this virus.
Commissioner Hunt?
Yes, thank you, Chair Jacobson. I'd like to go back to the comment that Director Austin made about the testing. What can we as commissioners do to have more testing done? And I ask that question because I'm not aware that there's a lot we can do. It's still dependent upon the individual, in effect, going to their primary care physician or to the county if they don't have one and getting a referral. And so, I think we do need more testing, but I'm not sure what at the county level we can do other than message the fact that we need more testing.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you, Commissioner. Well, there's not a lot we can do. We are in touch with our partners at Samaritan, though, and they have Dr. Adam Brady, who heads up all their testing, and he's just done a phenomenal job of finding tests that we can rely on, and that test is using. He goes out and finds another test in another lab that will pick things up for us, because everybody knows how critical it is to have the results as quickly as possible. So when we're starting to wait a week out for results, that is not helpful to us. So he's been awesome at doing that kind of work for our community. And I think what Florence was talking about is that you're going to see more and more of these rapid tests coming out. I think our concern right now is the validity of them. We need to be able to count on them, because we want to say to somebody that when they're negative, they really are negative. We don't want to say, oh, now we got to do another test to make sure that you really are negative. So we don't want to be in that situation either. And that is kind of where we've been caught in this country for months now, really improving those tests so that, practically anybody can do them. And we can be assured that the result is what the result is. So, but we're going to see more of what Florence was talking about. And I know that, I think it's U of O, maybe it's OSU, I get them mixed up, sorry. That they just got a grant to make testing available to our Latinx population. And so we put in a letter of support for that grant. They got that grant. So now we're going to be working with them on how we want to set that up in our county to make sure that that testing is available for that population, which, remember, has been very disproportionately affected in our county. So the Latinx population has been the heavy burden of this disease, and so we want to definitely get some testing done for them. So we're in the process of setting that up. So you're going to just see more and more of that, I think, as we get more innovative and get more tests out there. Good question, thank you.
Yeah, well, good. That's helpful information. And Florence, thank you for the slides. I think you're whoever helped you prepare the slides on the schools, that was helpful. I guess I have a last comment. I see that on the gathering size outdoors that pumpkin patches are limited to 250 people. Well, I was outside of the county this weekend, and I can tell you there were far more than 250 people at the pumpkin patch I was at.
Yeah, me too. And the person who helped with the slides was Susan Traxel.
I thought it might be Susan, so thank you both.
Thank you. One last thing I would say on a public health note is just a reminder for everybody to get their flu shot. It is the whole family and grandma, a little dramatic with all the kids, but we got through it. And I know Samaritan is doing them, or Lincoln community health centers are doing them. I see signs at pharmacies and all of that. So just a reminder to folks.
Thank you.
All right. I think Casey's going to scroll for us. So I think next up on our agenda, at least if I take Casey's cue correctly, is discussion with Anna Husing from our planning department, as well as Kristen Yule from legal about proposed fee schedule changes. And earlier in our wildfire update, I think it kind of came up that we, might want to discuss fee changes or opportunities with fees or people rebuilding, but I know this was kind of something not related to wildfire, so we might need to kind of separate those two things out, but I'll let you guys go ahead and start.
Hey, good afternoon, commissioners. If you could just go ahead and turn your fee schedule. Casey, could you go to page 7? So we only have 3 departments that submitted changes this year. We have the DA's office, personnel, and then the planning department. So for the district attorney's office, they're proposing to change their electronic discovery for felony, misdemeanor, and violations. It's going to be a flat rate of $35 for e-discovery. And then the only other change is regarding photographs, which will be the actual cost for development. Anybody have any questions about those two? No? Okay.
No.
Casey, can you go to page 11? So for personnel, they're updating some of their fees for police officer testing. And it used to be a cost of $15, but I think several years ago it did increase to the same amount for corrections and for a patrol deputy. So we're just kind of correcting that amount.
Yeah, so just to clarify, the actual cost of that change from 15 to 24.50, and we're just updating that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Casey, could you actually just go to page 12? And this is the start of the planning fees. And I will help, if you want to just notate, Casey, we're going to go to 12, 13, and then we're going to jump to 17, and then that's all the fees. And I'm going to let Otto kind of go through some of these. I highlighted the yellow is for a fee that's new. So if you don't see a strike through, that means this is a new fee. And then I'm just going to let Otto explain the rationale for some of the new fees.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Madam Chair, Anna Husing, Lincoln County Planning Department. The first slide, I noticed there was a strikeout. This was supposed to be discussed in July and then struck out. And so it took me a little time to reacquaint myself with exactly what we did here. The one set of new fees occurred, and we talked about this in the public when we had our flood the last October when we did the new floodplain ordinances. We discovered during that process that the Army Corps of Engineers, the FEMA wanted for us to keep track of many more very routine potential development activities that we weren't covering at this point. And so what we did was internally with the staff, we realized some of these development activities are so small and so easy to check on, and it was a de minimis process, meaning we had to hardly do anything, that what we thought it would be fair to the public to not just charge them the normal $200 fee to have a floodplain development permit. Some of these things were simple enough and quick enough that we should sort of, get them out of that higher amount and move them into something more modest, because again, we could do them quickly. So that we've established really then it's on the floodplain development permit fees, instead of a single fee, we broke them out into a kind of a no-brainer first review for only $50. Again, in the spirit of not charging people $200 for what was perceived at one point to be a more involved process. And then with type 1, we're sticking with the $200, which is sort of the normal review. And then in the case there's a type 2 that we would bring up to $400, because that requires a lot more involvement with floodways and the kind of, so again, so we went from creating a single amount to 3 amounts, one for much more routine things at the lower end of the spectrum, one sort of the normal stuff, and then a higher amount for the types of floodplain development permits that are much more involved. So that's the explanation there. I would entertain a question on that now rather than try to backload that. If that seems obvious to you, I'll continue. And
I have a question, and we'll see if the other commissioners do as well. So, like you had said, you had previously one fee, just a catch-all, that you took away, and then you're replacing with these 3 different fees, kind of depending on the level of help or review that they required. What was that old fee?
the old fee was 200.
Okay, all right. So
That
whether
was standard fee, right? So when we took it down to 50 for a lot of stuff, I mean, that's substantially different. And then we kept the 200 for basically normal stuff. And then we created a higher fee for those rare circumstances where development in a floodway with step back analysis, an awful lot more review. We thought that would be more commensurate with the activities that, in terms of our time commitment dealing with it.
Yeah, so really what we're trying to do here is just be more equitable, and that, why pay $200 and maybe what you're asking for is more simplistic. And then on the reverse of that, if it's a lot more harder, it would be a higher fee. Okay, that was my question.
To the extent that was wise, to the extent that was a wise approach, I want to compliment, if that's true, I want to compliment our staff that they were the ones that brought that to me, saying, wait a minute, we some of these things we can, that we're being asked to do now, we can do a lot more quickly. And we don't want to charge people $200 for that.
Okay, Commissioner Hunt, questions on this particular thing? No, okay, Commissioner Hall?
No questions. It all seems to make eminent good sense.
All right, so if I may, Chair Jacobson, I'll move on to we've also recommended from a staff perspective that for plan developments, and that's a special type of development where an applicant needs to submit a tremendous amount of information to us, and we have to do a tremendous amount of review and have a lot of hearings and stuff, because a plan development says, hey, we're going to suspend the rules and the normal criteria. We're going to go into this very hopefully creative and positive process where there's going to be a lot more engagement with an applicant to lay out a plan for a particular development. And so that again requires a tremendous amount of staff time on our parts to go through this. That the original $2,100 fee for a plan development has been in place for many, many years, just like many of our fees have not gone up. We've kept them very modest compared to some other jurisdictions. So again, given our experience for what it takes to do a plan development, we're suggesting that those go from $2,150 to $3,000. Again, trying to recoup the amount of staff time it takes to go through this. And again, that $2,150 fee has not changed in many years, and we don't see a lot of these. This is this kind of a one-off situation. Nobody has to do a plan development. It's something an applicant proposes to do, and of course, when they're done well, they benefit everybody. So I'm not saying anything negative about them. It's just that they're very complex and very time consuming, and so again, we're just trying to make sure that we do a better job of cost recovery for some of these applications. So again, I'll pause for a moment and see if you have any questions about that one.
No questions from me on this one. I see Commissioner Hall shaking her head. Commissioner Hunt?
Okay, so the last, I'm sorry, are we okay on that?
I'm trying to read the fine print. Is there a plus 50 after the plan development? What's that mean?
Yes, that's an additional surcharge per unit. That's always been there. So depending on the number of units, because you could have a plan development. In fact, we're going to be doing one soon that's only 3 or 4 units in it. Or you could have something as involved as Bella Beach or Salishan that has dozens, if not hundreds type in it. So I think, Commissioner Hunt, thank you for pointing that out in the so-called fine print, but that's also there to capture the, to some extent, has been in there for a long time to capture how big a project we're talking about.
Oh, I just figured out why I was confused, that because there's a gap between the plus 50 and the per dwelling unit, I didn't pick up the two together. So I understand now that I read more carefully. Thank you for your answer. I think we want to eliminate the line between those two if we can.
Don't worry, we'll do a lot of editing and formatting.
Okay.
And thank you for the question, because if you had that question, obviously others did too.
Well, it doesn't take much to confuse me, I admit it.
So then since I'm looking at the screen, looking at the major conditional use. So let me sort of explain what that is. What we've discovered, and it doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, there'll be a project that comes up that requires an enormous amount of work, like from a completely different galaxy. And so if we take out, let's say someone wants to have a bed and breakfast, and it's a $1,500 fee to do a conditional use permit. We have to give notice. There's opportunities to appeal. That's the whole point of a conditional use permit. There needs to be a staff report. And so for the normal conditional use fee, it's basically something in that neighborhood of just under $1,000 to do a conditional use. And it may still require a fair amount of staff time and mailings and all that kind of stuff. But every once in a while, we will get a very, very big project. I know commissioners, for instance, right now, we've got a conditional use application being made to us by Georgia Pacific for a major new landfill, near the Yaquina River as part of their Toledo operation. We've got thousands of dollars of time in just the pre-application conferences dealing with that kind of mega project. And so it just seemed, in the spirit of trying to be fair to people, why is it a major player for a major project that really demands a tremendous amount of our time and energy before an application gets made, during an application process, and then afterwards? I would just invite you to consider that perhaps you give us the discretion to say, all right, when these really big projects come around, in the spirit of fairness, let's make sure that we try to have a little bit more cost recovery on the kinds of demands that those big projects have on our department and the amount of staff time that it takes to do them. Not long ago, I was part of a conference call with a lot of the other planning directors around the state, and I floated this idea. I said, God, are you guys feeling the same sense of unease that you're just asking Ma and Pa down the street for a minor matter to charge them, for a conditional use process, even if it goes to your planning commission or not? But meanwhile, some of these major projects just completely suck you dry with the amount of time and energy. And I got nothing other than, you're absolutely right. We really need to be able to have the flexibility within our system. So if the follow-up question to my little description of why I think we should break these things out is that do you have a firm set of criteria that says, well, what's a major conditional use or a major permit compared to average permits? And I don't. And I prefer to keep it that way, that the way if you were to grant our department the authority to assign a major permit or a major conditional use and to assign that kind of additional fee requirement, I would just ask you to give us that authority with the understanding that there's no way on God's green earth that we would ever take that larger major use permit requirement and attach it to something that was really quite routine. Again, I don't have a set of criteria for that. I would, unless people would want to try to offer such criteria. But I think we really know it when we see it. So, Kristen, I'm done.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I did do some research on other jurisdictions. And that fee is actually quite modest. If you look at some other jurisdictions, they have fees starting at that amount and upwards to almost $13,000. And they call it different things. So, you know, a master plan, a concept plan, they really have a really good designation of how they break it down. So, you know, it might be helpful, Anno, for staff to look at some of those other jurisdictions, and you would know exactly where staff time is going, and you could break it out that way. But I think this is a pretty modest proposal compared to what I'm seeing across the state. And I understand exactly what he's talking about when you get some of these larger plans, and it really does take a lot of staff time.
And I would suggest in closing, unless there are questions, that, you know, for major projects, this kind of money is a rounding error. It really is not. There is nobody that wants to do something like this in Lincoln County that's going to say, oh, I've got to fork over another 5 or 6K to do this. That's not going to happen. If they need a big project, or if they think they're going to be doing something on a large scale, this is really, you know, quite affordable, I would believe.
Okay, we'll see if anyone has questions. I guess the one thing I would say is, you know, while I certainly understand that some of these larger projects require staff time, we do have to recover that cost so that we have a planning department. I think having some type of language around what is a major conditional use is important. Because while I understand that, you know, you're going to use that for very specific circumstances, the fact is that you may not be here forever. We may have a new plan director at some point in time. We may, you're like, please, we may have other staff that come in, or other staff with other experiences that interpret what that means differently. And I feel like if we don't have some kind of written understanding of what we mean by that, it's easy for it to get interpreted as something else later. You know, myself and Commissioner Holland Hunt may not be here at some point. Kristen may not be here at some point. So the institutional memory of what that is supposed to be for can get watered down or lost. So I think it's just important that we do have some written language somewhere that really gets to the intent and what the intent of that particular fee is for and what the intent is not for, so that it does not get lost between staff and commissioners and legal counsel and all of that stuff. It's my only comment. Commissioner Hunt, anything to add?
And I was gonna say, Anno, I can help you with language for a footnote, and we could include exactly kind of what you're thinking of for what would be a qualifier for a major conditional use.
So my question for the chair would be, is that something, do you still want to act on this with the understanding that we will develop that written explanation that comes with it, or is this something we want to park on the side of the road until we do that?
From the description that I was given today, you know, that was a verbal description. I feel fine, you know, moving forward with the condition that we create that written explanation.
Well, I would enjoy working with Kristen on that. If there's language from other jurisdictions, help clarifies that. Plus, please understand, if one of these comes up, I'm likely not to go solo in terms of making this judgment call. I'm likely to also interact with at least one of the commissioners in making a judgment call that a project has indeed crossed that threshold that it deserves the higher fee. Just because it's good to have different eyes on this to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Thank you, Commissioner Hunt. Did you have other questions, comments?
No, I'm comfortable. I think some clarity would be helpful, but I'm comfortable moving ahead.
Okay, Commissioner Hall, questions or comments?
Nope, I'm comfortable moving ahead on this as well. I think developing the footnote that's been discussed is a good idea, though, for the reasons that you stated, Chair Jacobson.
Okay.
Casey, can you go to page 17? So this is the last proposal for your department, Anno. And it's just across the board, 3%, and some of them are actually less than 3% increase. I would like to say that planning has not increased these in over 2 years, almost going on 3 years. So it's been a while before you guys have updated these fees.
And I think it's important for people out in the public to understand that it's been discussed at the management level and with the commissioners that what we do want to avoid is sticker shock from not helping to gradually inch fees along with inflation, et cetera, rather than all of a sudden dump a whole bunch of really bigger fees on people at one time. So that was the spirit of making sure that we were offering these up as well.
I don't have any questions about this. Commissioner Hunt, questions?
No, I agree with the idea that I think it's better to kind of make adjustments that are more consistent with inflation than to wait several years and then have a big sticker shock increase. So this makes sense to me.
Okay, Commissioner Hall?
Agreed.
Okay.
I have this actually to come back in 2 weeks. So we could get, if anybody has comments, the public, if they want to submit any responses to the proposals. So it would come back to you guys on November 2nd for action.
Okay. Do we have consensus for that, for it to come back on November 2nd?
Yeah, that would allow time for the footnotes on the major conditional use. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Me too.
All right, thank you, board.
Thank you.
I think before you are off the hook, Anno, I think, like I said previously in our wildfire update, the idea of fees kind of came up and potentially waiving fees. I know some other communities have done some different things around waiving fees or what have you. And I think there's several pieces that we need to potentially look into here, not just with our fees, but with some other fees through special districts and that kind of stuff that are associated there. So I'm going to suggest that maybe, we ask Director Husing to kind of look into what has been done in other counties and what sort of makes sense, as well as myself and maybe some other commissioners can reach out to some of those other districts that also have certain fees associated with rebuilding, and kind of start having the conversation with them. And maybe we come back next week and kind of discuss if we have a kind of proposed plan or some ideas to kind of move forward on that.
Yeah, Chair Jacobson, if I could, I would like to have an opportunity to have a little table setting discussion for that today. And as the commissioner who is liaison to the planning department, I reached out to Director Husing over the weekend and already have some initial thoughts from him. And I've also done some preliminary research on what at least 2 other counties have done. So if that's good, I'd like to share all of that with you today as kind of a table setter for next week's discussion. And I've also got a couple of other things related to temporary housing and hopefully longer term housing solutions.
I think I accidentally skipped commissioner reports earlier. My apologies. So I think now is a great time.
Okay, great. Director Husing, can you stay on the phone just a few minutes more?
Sure. I thought I was just going to mute myself because I thought we were done with that fee discussion, but I'm pleased to be here.
Got it. Thanks. Okay. 3 things I would like to share with the board and see what kind of direction and impact we have. One is the question of qualifying for FEMA housing. Another is something we've discussed at previous meetings, Project Turnkey. And then there's the question of development fees and how that might play a role in rebuilding. First, I gotta say probably the single most frequent question I'm hearing from the public, and I imagine you are as well, is are we going to get FEMA provided manufactured housing? And the answer right now is neither yes nor no. It's something that we need to continue pursuing. Just to try and boil it down to its essence, the president did sign a federal disaster declaration for 8 Oregon counties, including us. However, to qualify for housing assistance, FEMA has to make a separate finding on a county-by-county basis. And it's a lot of complicated data, but it comes down to them assessing the extent of damage, the extent of, and whether or not there are other available housing alternatives. So on October 2nd, the state of Oregon formally made a request to FEMA to approve direct housing assistance for 6 of the 8 counties covered by the federal disaster declaration: Jackson, Lynn, Marion, us, Douglas, and Lane. 5 days later, October 7th, FEMA responded approving Jackson, Lynn, and Marion counties. And as for us and Douglas and Lane, they said they will, quote, continue to evaluate whether there is a need to approve any additional counties. So I've been consulting with the Public Affairs Director for Oregon Housing and Community Services and asked what, if anything, we could do as a county organization to help encourage FEMA to make such a finding. And he said twofold is continue our outreach effort, which I think, the whole team is doing a great job of getting in the field and really encouraging everybody potentially eligible for FEMA help to apply. But another suggestion that OHCS made was that we, as a county board of commissioners, submit a formal request for FEMA to take a further look at our data and make an affirmative decision to approve us for a housing mission. So I am working with County Council Belmont to draft a letter to FEMA making such a request. And once we have a more formalized draft, I would like to circulate it to the 2 of you and see if we could sign off on that, send it off. No guarantee of results, but I think our attitude is anything we can do to advance this would be a big plus.
One thing I might add, Commissioner Hall, is would it be helpful to engage our state and national legislators?
I think so. I think that I'd look upon this as an additional step. I know that Representative Gomberg and Representative Roblin are already aware of this situation, as are our congressional delegations. So I think maybe asking all of them to weigh in as well would probably be a positive step. But this letter from our board, I'm hoping this is something we could turn around in a day or two, essentially, I guess, to keep the ball moving down the field, to use a football metaphor.
And certainly copy the state and national congressional.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Great thought. Okay. The second thing is Project Turnkey. And as we've previously discussed, this is a concept that several legislators have developed, and they're working in conjunction with the Oregon Community Foundation, which is the largest private foundation in the state. Oregon Community Foundation is willing to serve as fiscal agent for the project. And what the ask is going to be to the Legislative Emergency Board on Friday is to approve funding for the purchase of motels for conversion into essentially emergency and supportive housing. And this is largely, even though a lot of communities have done this on an individual basis, state of California took almost the exact same concept and has used it to house some of the victims of their devastating wildfires. And so, the push is on. The initial ask to the e-board from, essentially Oregon Community Foundation, LOC, AOC, and some other partners was going to be in the $15 to $20 million range to secure housing in our county and the other counties most severely impacted by the fires. But as I participated in several rounds of discussion with key legislators, both groups and individually, I think there is definite support and buy-in for the concept that they understand that this is a way to provide a lot of housing units very quickly and in a very cost-efficient manner. But frankly, at this level, my read is legislative support is all over the map, that there's at least one key legislative leader who wants to push for a $65 million allocation, which would provide for acquisition of 1,000 motel rooms. And, really the beauty of this concept is it allows us to meet the immediate need for fire housing, but it would also allow us to meet the need for, hopefully at least in part, for winter shelter for folks who are living homeless on the streets. The traditional model we think of called congregate shelters, where people are gathered, in the fairgrounds exhibit hall, in churches. Health authorities at every level are really strongly discouraging that model being used this winter. If at all possible, it can be avoided, because of the high risk of spread of infection. And so, this model could address that. And then certainly we know we've had a long-term need for more transitional, supportive, and low-income working family housing. And at least in theory, this could be a solution to some degree for all of these. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, there's another key legislator who just wants to make it a single county pilot project. And I understand their concern about doing due diligence and not throwing a lot of money at a need very quickly. But I think we'd all agree that this is a true crisis. And Mr. Husing, my fellow history buff, will certainly appreciate a quotation I'm going to share that I think applies richly in this case, because back in the beginning of Franklin Roosevelt's administration, we'll be hopeful for a good outcome on that vote from the emergency board on Friday. Then the question of planning and permitting fees for housing replacement. And my outreach to Director Husing was prompted in part by learning that both Marion and Lynn counties have taken steps in this direction. Now, in Lynn County, the board decided to waive fees for about 90 homes where the home was damaged, but they still have working and septic and water systems. Excuse me. Marion County has done something a bit more expansive. They estimate they had about 700 homes destroyed, and what they are doing is waiving their building and septic permit fees for about 470 homes that were considered primary residences. So secondary homes were immediately locked off. And, the county has estimated the cost of this is going to be $1.2 million. And just because one constituent who contacted me about this over the weekend said, well, it's our tax money that's supporting your planning department. Can't you just direct this to happen? And I explained it's not that simple. here's our current county budget, and this is really a gross oversimplification, but I'd like the public to understand kind of very quick math. The estimated revenues for planning and building this year, $937,000. Planning fees, building fee permits, plumbing permits, electrical permits, that's $762,000, or basically this is a fee supported department. We all know that, but I just want the public to be aware of it, that if we go this direction in some form, we're going to have to find a way to make up the revenue that these fees would normally provide. And in his initial response to me, Mr. Husing pointed out that replacement of a manufactured home, and probably half or more of these homes we're talking about were manufactured homes. But at the same time, the legislature a few years ago granted school districts the power to impose a construction excise tax. And for that same manufactured home, where the county would be looking at a $350 fee,
A placement fee, yeah.
Yeah, a placement fee. The school district would be imposing a $1,500 construction excise tax fee. So if we do decide
That's based on square footage. That's
right. So you're talking about, say, a typical manufactured home, and is that like a double wide, Anno, or?
Yeah, I think that's what my staff would tell me, right? For the average double wide, it would be about, right. The irony is we're looking at $350 placement fee, but the way that arithmetic works on the school tax, that's set by the school district. That's what that looks like.
So my thought is, if we look at this more formally next week and consider this, I think we should at least consider an ask to the school district to consider reduction or waiver of this fee as well. Again, septic systems, in many cases, it's not just the tank, but the entire septic system that needs to be replaced on a property, which could run $25,000 or more.
For the top of the line treatment.
Right. Now, our septic fee, is, again, roughly, it varies, but Anna, we're talking in the range of $1,000 per home. And, just to give people a ballpark idea of what we're talking about. And, with Marion County, and we would be in the same situation, not all of that money is collected and kept by Lincoln County. Some of it is passed through directly to the state of Oregon, and we would not have authority to waive that portion of the fees. So Anna and I, again, in our preliminary conversation, we said, do we look at the way of coming up with some kind of a means test? So, essentially pursue this in a surgical way to offer this extra help to the people who need the help. One question would be to look at whether or not people have insurance. Now, Marion County, they just decided whether a home is insured or not, that they will waive the fee. And I think apparently something that went into their discussion, I do have a message in to one member of their board, we haven't connected yet, is, that even for people who do have adequate insurance, insurance seldom makes you completely whole. So it seems like their view was that this is just one more incentive for folks to move forward with rebuilding quickly. So, Mr. Husing, I don't know. I think that's the framework I wanted to have for the discussion, and that maybe bringing the staff back a more formal proposal with some alternatives for us to consider as a discussion and information item next week.
Yep, I think that would be good. I would also say that Commissioner Hall, since you seem to be taking the lead on this from the commission, why don't you reach out directly to the school district and have that conversation with them as well? I think it would be good for it to come from one of us.
Sure, happy to do that.
I just want to say quickly that I embrace the fact that we're having this conversation. I wish I had $1 for every time somebody asked us about fee waivers. We have been among the planner network talking about this in our conference calls. A lot of people are not doing it, but again, my only major part of the contribution to the discussion, I think, Commissioner Hall, was to, if we can find a way to really target the help to the people that really need it, because some of these folks are, by the time they really look at the full costs of trying to reestablish themselves on their property, I think they're, in some cases, they're going to be substantially short of being able to do that. And I think with each one of these 300 some odd stories, and thank God it's only that number in this county, that hopefully we're going to come out of this with a, as you put it, surgical, but tailored to the circumstances on the ground. So we really give people the help that need the help, because there's some folks out there, thankfully, and I'm one of them, that if I would have been properly insured and everything like that. I prefer that we intuitively, I believe that we should target the help where it really needs to get. And so that's why I thank you for the time to work with you and others to try to create a not an overly complicated system that gets us there. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that kind of updated report and proposal next week. Commissioner Hunt, any reports from you this week?
Well, I'd like to comment on a couple of things. Yeah, I'm certainly sensitive to the loss of people and the housing needs, but I guess I'm a little concerned that we don't make decisions that in the short run feed people, but in the long run cause us financial failure. And I think the housing question certainly has potential to have some long-term consequences that we want to make sure we address. I think about the county making the Commons facility available. We provided that asset, but there were challenges in getting it to be an effective use. And so along those same lines, I have concerns about purchasing a motel or other housing. Not that I don't recognize housing as a tremendous challenge, but I want to make sure that when we go about addressing it, we do it right and there are not long-term consequences that are really detrimental overall to the county. And again, on the waiving of fees, I think my concerns are in the same general nature. What's the financial impact and what are the long-term consequences? So certainly support the ideas, but concerned about some of the details that the devil may bring.
Okay.
And I do have a report as a commissioner. I do have a report. At the last meeting, I was questioning recycling of batteries, and I have confirmed that all three of our solid waste providers in the county, North Lincoln Sanitary, Thompson Sanitary, and Dahl Services, all accept batteries for recycling.
Thank you. Well, I had a couple of things I was going to share, mostly about winter warming shelter, but I have another meeting in 3 minutes. So I think I will hold off on my report till next week and go ahead and adjourn the meeting. And our next Board of Commissioners meeting is Monday, October 26th, 2020 at 3 p.m. So we'll see everybody virtually then.
This conference is no longer being recorded.